I used to work overnight security at a small apartment complex on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. 3 identical buildings, cracked pavement, dim yellow lights that flickered when it rained. The kind of place people moved into when they didn't plan on staying long. The graveyard shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. My job was simple. Walk the property every hour, check doors, and sit in the security office watching camera feeds that almost never showed anything worth looking at. Most nights I fought sleep harder than crime. The cameras were old, grainy, half of them barely worked. Management knew it, but as long as nothing happened, they didn't care. At least, that's what I thought. Around 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday night, I noticed movement on one of the hallway cameras, Building C, 3rd floor. That alone wasn't strange. Tenants came home late all the time. But something about the movement made my stomach tighten. The figure wasn't walking, it was just there. Standing directly in front of apartment 3C, facing the door, tall. Hood pulled up, hands hanging at its sides, completely still, no shifting, no fidgeting, no phone in hand like every normal person would have. I leaned closer to the monitor and adjusted the contrast. The hallway lights cast long shadows, but the figure's shadow didn't line up right. It stretched too far across the floor, like the light source was behind it instead of above. I checked the timestamp. 2:17:34 a.m. 30 seconds passed. The figure didn't move. A minute, 2 minutes. I assumed it was someone locked out, maybe waiting for a roommate. Still, something felt off. Most people knock, check their pockets, pace. This thing didn't do anything. At 2:25 a.m., I grabbed my radio and flashlight and headed out. Protocol said we weren't supposed to confront tenants, but curiosity got the better of me. Besides, I figured I'd just ask if they needed help. The stairwell in Building C smelled like mildew and old paint. My footsteps echoed louder than they should have. By the time I reached the 3rd floor, my palms were damp around the flashlight grip. The hallway was empty. Apartment 3C's door was closed. No footsteps, no elevator ding. No sign anyone had been there at all. I stood there longer than I want to admit, listening. The silence felt heavy, like pressure in my ears. Finally, I chalked it up to someone ducking inside when they heard me coming. Back in the security office, I sat down and checked the camera again. The figure was still there. Same position, same angle, same unnatural stillness. I frowned and checked the timestamp again. 2:17:34 a.m. It hadn't changed. I refreshed the feed, switched cameras, came back to it, still frozen. I felt a chill crawl up my neck. Frozen feeds weren't uncommon, but they didn't usually freeze on moving subjects. They froze on empty hallways, flickering lights, static, not people. I logged the issue in the incident book and made a note to tell maintenance in the morning. For the rest of the shift, I avoided looking at that monitor. The next night, I came in early. Before my shift officially started, I pulled up the camera history for Building C, 3rd floor. The footage jumped from normal hallway activity straight to the frozen image. No arrival, no walking into frame, just appearing. I brought it up to the day supervisor. He barely glanced at the screen. "That camera's been dead for a while," he said. I laughed. "No, it's not. I use it all the time." He shook his head. "Nah, that one went out last year." I felt my smile fade. "Then what am I looking at?" He paused, squinted at the screen, then frowned. "That's weird," he muttered. I asked him when exactly the camera stopped working. He checked the logs. "About 14 months ago," he said, "right after that incident on the 3rd floor." "What incident?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "Tenant in 3C, guy named Mark. Quiet, kept to himself. One day he just vanished. No lease termination, no belongings taken. Apartment was untouched, door locked from the inside." I stared at the screen. The figure was standing in front of 3C. That night, I didn't do my 2 a.m. patrol. Around 2:17 a.m., the monitor flickered. The timestamp started moving again. The figure moved for the first time. It lifted its head. I couldn't see a face, just darkness beneath the hood. But I felt something lock onto me through the screen. My chest tightened, breath shallow, like my body knew before my brain did that I was being watched. The figure raised one hand and knocked. 3 slow knocks echoed through the hallway speakers. The sound carried through the office, distorted and crackling, but unmistakable. Then the figure turned, not toward the apartment door, but toward the camera, toward me. The feed cut to static. I didn't wait. I grabbed my things and left the office, not even bothering to lock the door behind me. I called my supervisor from my car and told him I quit. The next day, curiosity got the better of me. I drove past the complex. Apartment 3C's door was open. Inside, the unit was empty, except for deep scratch marks on the inside of the door, from the hallway side, like something had been trying to get out. My parents left for a weekend trip when I was 16. It wasn't the first time I'd been home alone, but it was the first time they were going to be gone overnight. 2 nights, just me, the house, and my phone. The house wasn't old, but it had a history. One of those places that creaked and settled no matter the weather. 2 floors, unfinished basement, backyard that faded into a thin line of trees. During the day, it felt normal, safe. That changed at night. The first evening went exactly how I expected. I ordered food, watched movies too loud, and slept with my bedroom door open like I always did. I didn't hear anything unusual. The second night was different. I woke up around 1:40 a.m. to the sound of footsteps upstairs. At first, my half-asleep brain didn't react. Then reality hit me all at once. I was upstairs. The footsteps were slow, heavy, each step spaced out like the person walking was taking their time, not pacing, not rushing, just moving with purpose. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and listened. The sound stopped. I held my breath, waiting to hear something else, anything. But the house went completely silent. Even the usual background noise felt gone, like the house itself was listening too. I grabbed my phone and texted my parents. "Did you guys come back early?" No response. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe the house settling. Maybe I dreamed it. I lay back down and tried to relax. Then the footsteps started again. This time, they were closer. They moved down the hallway toward my room. I got up, quietly shut my bedroom door, and locked it. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my phone. The footsteps stopped directly outside my door. I could see a shadow beneath the door. It wasn't moving. I texted my parents again. "I think someone's in the house." Still no response. Minutes passed. The shadow didn't shift. No breathing, no movement, just a presence on the other side of the door. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me into a shallow, restless sleep. When I woke up, sunlight was pouring through my window. My door was still locked. The hallway outside was empty. I convinced myself I'd imagined everything. That confidence lasted until I went downstairs. The back door was unlocked. I knew for a fact I'd locked it the night before. I checked the house, every room, every closet. Nothing was missing. Nothing was disturbed, except the floor. Mud tracked in from the back door. Bare footprints led through the kitchen, across the living room, and toward the stairs. They went up. I called the police. They came, took photos, asked questions, and checked the perimeter. No forced entry, no signs of a break-in. One officer suggested maybe I forgot to lock the door. I didn't. That night, my parents still hadn't returned. I didn't want to stay, but I didn't want to leave either. I slept with my lights on and my door locked. At 2:03 a.m., the footsteps came back. Same slow pace, same weight behind each step. They stopped outside my door again. This time, something slid across the floor. A soft scraping sound, then a knock. One knock, not loud, not aggressive, just firm enough to be intentional. I didn't move. Another knock. My phone buzzed. It was my mom. "Sorry, we're in a bad signal area. Everything okay?" Before I could reply, the doorknob turned. It didn't rattle, it didn't shake. It turned slowly, deliberately, until it stopped. The shadow under the door shifted. Then it spoke. Not loud, not threatening. Just my name. I screamed. The sound must have scared it, or whatever it was, because I heard footsteps retreating down the hallway, then the back door opening and closing. My parents drove home immediately. We checked the house together. This time, the mud footprints were back, but different, deeper, more defined. They stopped right outside my bedroom door, facing it. We moved a month later. The new owners replaced the back door. They told us the old lock was faulty. Sometimes I still wake up at night expecting to hear footsteps, and sometimes I swear I do. I drive long distances for work, not glamorous road trips, just empty highways, overnight deliveries, and stretches of road that blur together after midnight. You learn quickly that the worst part isn't exhaustion, it's isolation. This happened about a year ago, during a route I'd done dozens of times before. Same roads, same gas stops, same rest areas. I knew them well enough to drive on autopilot. That night, I left later than usual. By the time I crossed into the rural stretch of highway, it was close to midnight. No radio signal, no streetlights, just headlights cutting through darkness and trees lining both sides like walls. Around 12:40 a.m., my eyes started burning. I hadn't slept much the night before, and caffeine wasn't helping anymore. I knew I shouldn't push it. There was a rest area about 5 miles ahead, the last one before a long dead zone. I decided to stop. The exit ramp was empty. The rest area sign flickered as I pulled in. Only one set of lights was on near the bathrooms. The parking lot was almost completely dark. Almost. One car was parked near the far edge of the lot. Its engine was running, headlights off. That alone made me uneasy. Most people either shut their car off or keep the lights on. This car did neither, just a low, constant idle. I slowed down, watching it as I passed, trying to see inside. The windows were tinted too dark to tell if anyone was in the front. I parked closer to the bathrooms and sat there for a moment, debating whether I even wanted to get out. My instincts told me to leave, but my body was exhausted and I needed to use the restroom. I locked my car and walked inside. The bathroom lights buzzed overhead. The place smelled like disinfectant and stale air. No other footsteps, no voices, just the hum of electricity. I went to the sink to splash water on my face. That's when I heard it. A whisper, not behind me, not echoing, right next to my ear. It said my name, clear, familiar, like someone who knew exactly how to say it. I froze, hands gripping the edge of the sink. My reflection stared back at me, pale and wide-eyed. I turned slowly, expecting to see someone standing there. The bathroom was empty. I checked the stalls. Empty. No shoes, no movement. I laughed nervously, telling myself I was tired, hallucinating. Stress does weird things when you're alone at night. I dried my hands and left. The parking lot felt colder when I stepped outside. The air was still. Too still. The car was still there, engine running exactly the same way. As I walked past it, something made me stop. The front seats were empty. No driver, no passenger. I took a step back and looked again, heart pounding. The back seat wasn't empty. Someone was sitting there, centered, upright, hands folded in their lap. They were facing forward, but their heads slowly turned toward me. I didn't scream. I didn't move. Their face was pale, almost gray in the low light. Eyes open too wide, mouth slightly open like they were about to speak. Then they smiled. I ran. I don't remember unlocking my car. I don't remember starting it. I just remember flooring the gas pedal and not looking back. The second I merged onto the highway, my phone lost all signal. For the rest of the drive, I kept checking my mirrors, expecting headlights behind me. There were none. I didn't stop again until sunrise. The next morning, after I finally slept, curiosity got the better of me. I looked up that rest area online, just to see if anyone else had mentioned anything strange. I didn't find reviews. I found a news article. It was dated 7 years earlier. A vehicle had been discovered abandoned at that exact rest area. Engine still running, headlights off, keys in the ignition, no driver, no passengers. Security footage showed a single person entering the restroom late at night. They never came back out. The article mentioned something else. Several witnesses over the years reported seeing someone sitting in the back seat of the car, despite police confirming it was empty when found. I stopped driving nights after that. Months passed. I tried to forget it. Then one night, while sitting at home, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no text, just a voicemail. When I played it, all I heard was the low hum of an engine, and then a whisper saying my name. I moved into the apartment because it was cheap and close to campus. That was it. No emotional attachment, no charm. Just 4 walls, a bedroom, a bathroom, and a narrow hallway that connected everything together like a spine. The building itself was old. Not abandoned old, but neglected. The kind of place where the lights buzzed, the paint peeled in corners, and the elevators stalled just long enough to make you uneasy. Still, it was quiet. Too quiet, maybe, but at the time I liked that. I lived alone. The first few weeks were normal. Classes, work, sleep, nothing out of the ordinary. The only thing that stood out was how sound traveled in the building. You could hear footsteps from floors above and below, voices bleeding through walls, doors closing down the hall. I learned the rhythm of the place quickly. Who came home late, who left early, which doors slammed and which didn't. That's how I knew something was wrong, the night the sounds didn't match anyone. It started with footsteps outside my apartment around midnight. Slow, measured, heavy enough to be deliberate, light enough not to echo. They stopped right outside my door. I waited for a knock. Nothing. After a few seconds, the footsteps continued down the hall and faded away. I assumed it was just a neighbor heading to the stairs. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same pace, same pause outside my door. This time, I opened it. The hallway was empty. The overhead light flickered softly. No doors were opening, no elevator sounds, nothing. I shut the door and told myself not to overthink it. A week later, the noises changed. Instead of footsteps, I heard something dragging. Not heavy, more like fabric brushing against carpet, slow, repetitive. It moved back and forth outside my apartment, stopping and starting, like whoever, or whatever, was out there didn't know where to go. I pressed my ear to the door, breathing. Not loud, not fast, just steady. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I checked the hallway for marks on the carpet. There were none. I asked the neighbor across the hall if they had heard anything strange. They looked confused. "I thought that was you," they said. That answer didn't sit right with me. A few nights later, I woke up to my phone vibrating. 3:12 a.m. No notification, no message, just vibrating, like someone was calling without actually calling. At the same time, I heard it again, the dragging sound. This time, it stopped right at my door. I stayed frozen in bed, staring at the dark ceiling, listening to the sound of breathing just on the other side. My phone stopped vibrating. Then there was a knock, soft, controlled, not aggressive, just close enough to feel intentional. I didn't answer. Minutes passed. The breathing stopped. The dragging sound retreated down the hall. The next day, I went to the building office. I asked if there were cameras in the hallways. They said no. I asked if there had ever been complaints about someone wandering the halls at night. The woman at the desk hesitated before answering. "Which floor are you on?" When I told her, her expression changed. She said nothing else. That night, I locked my door, pushed a chair under the handle, and kept the lights on. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps again, but this time they didn't stop at my door. They stopped inside my apartment. I sat straight up in bed. The footsteps moved slowly down the hallway toward my bedroom. Each step felt closer than the last. I could hear the carpet compress beneath them. My door was closed. The handle turned, stopped, turned again. Then a voice spoke. Not loud, not angry, just curious. "Why won't you open the door?" I screamed. The footsteps retreated instantly, moving faster now, almost frantic, disappearing back into the hallway. I didn't sleep. I didn't open my door until morning. When I finally did, I found something sitting on my floor, a strip of carpet, cut cleanly from the hallway, placed just inside my doorway. I moved out the next day. A week later, I looked up the building online. Buried deep in old forms, I found a post from years earlier. Someone describing the same sounds, the same footsteps, the same voice. They said the previous tenant on that floor had died alone in their apartment. No one noticed for weeks. They said sometimes, late at night, it still walks the halls, listening, knocking, waiting for someone to answer. I live in an apartment building where sound travels too well. You hear conversations you aren't meant to hear, arguments through walls, Phones vibrating on nightstands that aren't yours. At first, it's annoying. Eventually, it becomes unsettling. I moved in during late winter. The building was older, brick exterior, narrow hallways, low ceilings. Everything smelled faintly of dust and cleaning chemicals. The rent was cheap, which should have been the first warning. My apartment was sandwiched between two others. On my left lived an older man I barely ever saw. On my right lived a woman named Erin. I only knew her name because of the mailbox. Erin was quiet. Too quiet. We passed each other a few times in the hallway. She always smiled politely but never stopped to talk. I never heard music from her apartment, never heard a TV, never heard guests. But late at night, I heard her crying. The first time, it woke me up around 1:30 a.m. At first, I thought it was coming from somewhere else in the building, but the longer I listened, the more certain I became. It was coming from the wall to my right. The crying was soft, like she was trying not to be heard. Broken breaths, occasional sniffles, no words, just sadness leaking through thin walls. I felt awkward listening, so I put headphones on and went back to sleep. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same sound, same quiet desperation. I debated knocking on her door, but I didn't want to overstep. People cry. It's none of my business. Still, something about it bothered me. It didn't sound like normal crying. There was no rise and fall, no escalation. It was constant, like it had been going on for a long time. The third night, the crying was louder. I sat up in bed, heart heavy, staring at the wall. It sounded closer now, clearer. I could hear her breathing between sobs. I reached for my phone. Before I could text anyone, my phone buzzed. It was Erin. "Hey, are you hearing that too?" I stared at the message. My first thought was that she meant something else. Maybe noise from another apartment, I typed back. "Hearing what?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Her reply came slowly. The crying. My stomach dropped. I sat there in the dark, listening to the sound bleeding through the wall. "That's not you?" I typed. A few seconds passed. "No," she replied. "I thought it was you." The crying stopped, not faded, not slowed. Stopped. The silence felt heavy, like pressure building in my ears. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I knocked on Erin's door. No answer. I tried again later that afternoon. Still nothing. Her car was gone, her lights were off. I assumed she'd gone out of town. That night, the crying returned, but it wasn't coming from the wall anymore. It was coming from the hallway. I opened my door slowly and stepped out. The hallway lights were dimmed for nighttime. The sound echoed faintly, drifting from somewhere near the stairwell at the far end. I couldn't see anyone. I stood there, listening. The crying sounded closer the longer I listened, like it was moving toward me, but I never heard footsteps. I shut my door and locked it. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, no message, just a missed call. Seconds later, another call came in. I declined it, then a voicemail notification appeared. I didn't listen to it until morning. When I finally did, my hands went cold. It was the sound of someone crying, recorded, close, breathing into the phone. At the very end, I heard a whisper. My name. I went to the building office that day and asked about Erin. The woman behind the desk looked confused. "There's no Erin in that unit," she said. I told her the apartment number. She shook her head. "That unit's been vacant for months." I laughed, thinking it was a mistake. She didn't laugh back. I asked who lived there before. She hesitated, then said, "A woman named Erin." My chest tightened. "What happened to her?" The woman lowered her voice. "She passed away, alone, medical emergency. Neighbors didn't notice for a while." "How long?" I asked. She didn't answer. That night, the crying was inside my apartment, not loud, not distant, right outside my bedroom door. I sat frozen on my bed, staring at the handle. My phone buzzed, a text from Erin. "I don't want to be alone anymore." The handle turned slightly. I didn't scream. I didn't move. Eventually, the crying faded. The next morning, my door was still locked. I moved out 2 days later. Months passed. I changed apartments, changed routines, tried to forget. Last week, my phone buzzed while I was half asleep. Unknown number, one message. Can you hear me now?